Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. A little boy opened Emily's door before she did. I'm Jake, 29, and that split second still hums. I held takeout in one hand and flowers in the other. He stared at me like I knocked on the wrong life. He yelled for her with my face still hanging in the doorway. His voice echoed through the hallway and my grip slipped a little. I already knew something was off, I just did not know what. Emily rushed over so fast she almost slid into the frame. She pulled the door wider with one hand on his shoulder. Her smile showed up late like it had to run there. "Hey, wow, you are early." Her eyes skipped to the bags. Then to the flowers, then back to me, then to him. No one said who he was, no one said who I was. The kid grabbed the edge of my jacket and squinted up. "Are you Mom's friend?" he asked like this was a quiz. Emily flinched at the word and gently moved his hand away. "Go inside, bud, I'll be right there." Her voice sounded tight. He shuffled back a few steps, but he did not fully leave. He lingered near the hallway like a guard who lost instructions. I still had not stepped in and the door felt heavy. I forced a laugh that sounded weird even to my own ears. "I thought we were doing movie night, just us." The words cracked. Emily nodded too fast, the kind of nod that says please drop it. "Yeah, we are, I can explain, just come inside." I crossed the threshold and nearly kicked a plastic truck by accident. I dodged it and almost dropped the food all over the floor. Backpacks leaned against the wall, tiny shoes gathered near the mat. None of that matched the version of her apartment I knew. Every small detail screamed something I somehow missed completely before today. My brain tried to rearrange months of dates in 2 seconds. All those late cancellations, all those early nights, every vague excuse. I felt stupid for not connecting anything and a little angry. Emily closed the door gently, like any louder sound might shatter us. She set the flowers on a nearby table without even looking. "I was going to tell you," she said, hands shaking slightly. Not enough to be dramatic, just enough to make my chest clench. "Tell me what?" I already knew, but I needed her words. She opened her mouth, closed it, glanced toward the hallway again. A cartoon blared softly from somewhere deeper in the apartment. The boy laughed at something and the sound hit my stomach. "There are kids here," I said because my thoughts felt scrambled. She winced at the way I said it, like I accused her. "They are mine," she answered, almost whispering that last word at me. That word landed harder than anything, heavier than it should have. I leaned against the wall to keep my knees from giving out. 2 kids, that was the number she finally pushed into daylight. She added their ages quickly, like ripping off a bandage fast. 6 and 4, not babies, not abstract, real people hiding inside. I tried to remember every conversation where kids could have appeared naturally. Nothing came up, only jokes and surface-level stuff and dodge moves. I remembered her laughing once when I said I avoided playgrounds. Now I heard that laugh again and it felt different, sharper. "You never said anything." My voice dropped lower than I intended then. Her shoulders curled in a little, like she wanted to be smaller. "I know I handled this badly," she answered, eyes bright and frantic. "I was scared you would run the second you found out. That should have been my choice from the start, not a secret." She stepped closer, hand hovering near my arm, then pulling back again. "I wanted you to like me first, not just see baggage." The words stung not because of them, but because she decided alone. A small head peeked around the corner, the boy's hair sticking up. He watched us with that quiet suspicion kids get around new adults. Another smaller figure bumped into him, a little girl with a toy. They did not step closer, they just stared like we were television. Emily forced a lighter tone, too bright for the moment, hovering there. "Guys, go back to your room, okay? I'll be right in." The girl whispered something and the boy frowned, then they vanished. Their absence made the room feel even louder somehow, more unsteady. I set the takeout on the counter with awkward, careful movements. The date I planned felt ridiculous now, like a costume party. She moved beside me, close enough that I felt her shaking again. "I don't want you to think I used you," she muttered. I almost asked if that was not exactly what happened right now. Instead, I stared at the closed hallway where their room must be. 8 months together, at least that is what I thought we had. Now the entire timeline felt like wet paper in my hands. "How long have you been hiding them from me?" I chose that word. Hiding made her flinch harder than anything else so far that night. Her lips parted then pressed together like she swallowed two ansui. Ores. Can we sit first? She asked, voice rougher. This is a lot. I did not sit, I stayed standing because my legs would not fold. The couch waited behind me, the familiar one from our movie nights. Suddenly, I could imagine two small bodies passed out on it. The image hit harder than any argument she could try to build. She noticed where I was looking and rubbed her forehead with her palm. They stay with me most nights, she said almost too quickly. I thought if we worked, it would be easier. That word if sounded late like it should have arrived months earlier. I wanted to ask 100 things and nothing at the same time. Who watched them when we went out, where they were all those nights? Whether I already walked past their school things without understanding anything. Instead, I just asked one question that kept hammering inside me. Why today? I said, why am I meeting them like this? She looked toward the hallway again, then back at the door behind. Because you came early, she answered, letting out one bitter, almost laugh. And because I was running out of ways to lie to you. There it was, the word she had dodged since I stepped inside. Lie, not misunderstanding, not confusion, not bad timing, straight up lie. My jaw clenched without thinking and my hands curled slightly at my sides. I knew we were nowhere near the worst part of this yet. My knees finally bent and I dropped onto the couch. The cushions dipped more than I expected and annoyed me instantly. Emily stayed standing in front of me with her arms folded. For a second, we just listened to the cartoon playing down the hallway. Thank you for not walking out, she murmured toward the floor. It sounded less like gratitude and more like a weak defense. I rubbed my hands together because I needed something to do. This is not a favor, I answered, this is basic respect. Her jaw tightened and she nodded once like she accepted the hit. I know, she said, voice flat now, I deserve that reaction. She took one small step closer and kept distance with another. I want to tell you everything, I just need you calm. That last part poked something sharp in me and I almost laughed. Calm, I repeated, staring up at her, you kept your children hidden. She flinched at that word like I swung something heavy at her. They were never hidden, she insisted, I just kept lives separate. The wording made my skin crawl because it sounded weirdly practiced already. Those are the same thing to me right now, I answered, voice low. She pulled at her sleeve, looked toward the hallway, then back again. If I mess this up, please remember they are upstairs listening. That pulled my attention straight to the wall between us and them. I pictured two small bodies pressed against the door, hearing every word. Suddenly, everything I wanted to shout felt like it would hit them. I hated that she put me inside that careful trap without warning. She dropped onto the other end of the couch with a loud breath. I need you to know this was not some casual game. Her fingers twisted together and untwisted like she needed to keep moving. You were not a backup plan or whatever story your brain builds. I stared at the table instead of her because it steadied me. Then why did you never give me the full picture? I asked. Because every time I almost did, I heard you in my head. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees, eyes fixed on my shoes. You made that joke the second week about being hopeless with kids. My memory jumped to drinks, laughter, careless words thrown across a booth. I joked about a lot of things, I answered, heat rising fast. And you decided that version of me was permanent truth forever. You did not just joke, she pushed, finally meeting my eyes again. You said you would run from any guy with a stroller. Hearing my own line thrown back like evidence made my stomach twist. Right, I muttered, so you lied for months instead of testing that. She sat back, shoulders slumping, and gave this humorless half-laugh. I thought if you saw the whole situation too soon you would vanish. I wanted time to show you who I am before everything else. Then every week that passed made the truth heavier and harder. That part I almost understood, though I hated admitting that even mentally. I can see how you move the line just a little each time. Tell him after the third date, maybe after the fifth, maybe next month. Until one day your kid opens the door with your boyfriend outside. How long were you planning to maintain this version? I asked quietly. Like what was the plan exactly in your head? She stared at her hands again and her shoulders shook once before steadying. I thought maybe I would introduce you as a friend first, she whispered. I blinked at her because that stung more than I expected, honestly. To them, I clarified, or to everyone because I do not know anymore. To them, she breathed, nodding quickly, always them first, always them. I was going to start with short visits, neutral places, nothing loaded. So I just accidentally skipped a few levels tonight, I answered slowly. Straight from clueless boyfriend to stranger at their front door. Her mouth twisted because she knew I was not wrong about that jump. This is not how I pictured it, she muttered, wiping at one eye. Small footsteps pounded down the hall before either of us continued speaking. The boy appeared at the doorway clutching some stuffed thing to his chest. He lingered there like he was not sure if he needed permission. Mom, can we have snacks? He asked, mostly looking at her. Her expression softened immediately like a switch flipped behind her face. Yeah, give me 2 minutes, she answered, forcing her voice lighter. He glanced at me then, like he was trying to figure out my label. His gaze slid from my shoes to my hands to my tense shoulders. Is he staying? He asked, turning back toward her with a frown. That one simple question hit me harder than anything she had said. I realized I did not actually know that answer yet for myself. Emily hesitated just long enough for him to notice, and his face fell. Yes, she finally managed, standing up quickly. He is staying for dinner. She walked past him toward the kitchen and touched his head briefly. He brightened at that, then looked at me again with fresh curiosity. Do you like video games? He asked, almost hopeful, almost shy. I opened my mouth and nothing came out for a second or two. I do, I managed eventually. Maybe we can play sometime, all right. He nodded hard like that promise meant more than I understood right then. He ran back down the hall calling for his sister, completely trusting. The moment he vanished, the room snapped back to heavy silence around me. My chest felt tight because that tiny interaction already carried expectation. He heard his mother say I was staying, he believed it instantly. Meanwhile, I was still wondering whether I should walk away that night. Emily returned with a glass of water and set it near my knee. Her hands were damp from rinsing something quickly in the sink. Thank you for at least talking to him like a normal person, she said. I have watched guys look through him like he was just noise. My head jerked at that because there was a lot buried inside. You brought multiple men around them, I asked, not hiding the edge. One of her shoulders lifted, then dropped like she wanted to shrug it off. A couple, she admitted, and every time it ended badly for them. I caught that last word and my anger shifted in a different direction. We are not talking about them right now, I replied, pointing at her. We are talking about you not giving me a chance to choose. Her eyes flashed and for a second she looked ready to fight back. Then something inside her just sagged and the fight slid out again. You are right, she said, breathing out slowly, you deserved a choice. I just could not handle another man hearing the word kids then disappearing. So I tried to build something stronger first, then add the truth later. It was never going to feel like the right moment, I answered. You kept waiting for a day when this bomb would land gently somehow. She pressed her fingers to her temples like her head hurt from listening. Do you think I do not know that now? She whispered through her teeth. Behind the wall, the cartoon volume rose suddenly, then dropped after a shout. She grabbed the remote from the table and lowered it further with shaking hands. They do not know what we are arguing about, she muttered, not fully convincing. I told them you were my friend who might come by sometimes. Friend, that label made my stomach twist again with a fresh kind of sting. Is that what I am to you? I asked, eyes locked on hers. Some guy who buys dinner and watches movies, just a friendly visitor. She shook her head quickly, hair falling forward, then pushed it back. You know you are more than that, she insisted, her voice getting rough. I have feelings for you, that is why I am terrified right now. If you were just some guy, I would not be begging like this. She lifted her hands, dropped them, like even her gestures were running out. That word begging hung between us, and I honestly did not hate it. At least it sounded honest, not wrapped in excuses or clever explanations. I care about you too, I admitted, jaw tight, that is why this hurts. If I did not care, I would already be in my car. Her eyes filled up again and she blinked hard to keep focus. I keep replaying every moment I almost told you and stopped, she said. In the car once, at your place once, before that concert. Every time you looked happy and I panicked that I would wreck it. I remembered flashes of those nights, but from the surface only. Her checking her phone, going quiet. Changing the subject, laughing too loud. Now each small glitch replayed with subtitles I had never seen before. It made my own memory feel unreliable, like I missed entire scenes. I get fearing rejection, I muttered, rubbing the back of my neck slowly. I am not heartless, I understand fear, I get why you hesitated. But you kept going long after it turned from fear into strategy. And now I am sitting here wondering what else is edited for me. That last question hit both of us harder than I actually expected. Her eyes widened just a little, enough to tell me I was close. There is nothing else like this, she answered, maybe too quickly, maybe not. I screwed up in one huge way, not 50 little secret ways. I did not fully believe that, which she clearly picked up from my face. You can hate the decision without treating me like some con artist, she said. I am a mother who fell for someone and handled it like a coward. That is the story, not some master manipulation script. I breathed out slowly through my nose because I needed the control. Stop calling yourself a coward, I said, surprising both of us a little. You chose your kids first even while lying to me, that part tracks. What messes me up is that you also chose for me without warning. She studied me then, really studied, like she wanted to memorize that line. If I had been honest on the first date, would we still be here? She asked. I opened my mouth again and stopped because the truth tasted ugly. Probably not, I finally replied, but that does not make this better. Silence dropped over us for a few heartbeats and felt thick. From the hallway came the faint sound of the girl giggling at something. Emily wiped her cheeks with her sleeve and straightened her shoulders again. So what now? She asked, voice low, because they know you exist already. That was the twisted part I kept circling inside my head. If I left now, I was not just leaving her living room. I would be the guy their mom brought home, then lost within 1 week. My image would become another ghost those kids did not deserve. I need time, I started, then stopped because that line felt weak. She shook her head before I even finished forming the second word. Time is not something we really have with them involved, she replied quietly. They get attached fast, they notice patterns, they remember every broken promise. I thought of the boy asking if I liked video games earlier. I thought of the way his whole body relaxed when she said I stayed. I hated that I was part of his mental tally without consent. I hated that leaving would not feel clean now, just bloody. I am not promising anything tonight, I said, my voice steadier than expected. I am also not storming out while they are awake in the next room. Her shoulders dropped in what looked like relief and defeat at once. That is more than I thought I would get, she admitted under her breath. She stood, wiped her hands on her jeans, and nodded toward the hall. I need to feed them, she said. You can stay here or join. The choice hung there like a test, like she needed to see whether I would step into their orbit or keep my distance for now. My legs felt heavier than before when I pushed myself up to stand. Every step toward that hallway felt like stepping onto a moving train. I knew whatever decision I made in the next hour would stick. I also knew we had not even touched the subject of their father yet. The first time I met their dad, he blocked my path. We were leaving the park, kids racing ahead toward the small gate. He stepped from the sidewalk and stood right in front of me. Emily stopped so abruptly behind me the wheels beside us squealed. The guy looked older than me, not by much, just enough. He had that tired posture that comes from long arguments and short sleep. His eyes went past me to the kids, then snapped back. You must be Jake, his voice steady in a way mine was not. He did not offer his own name, he just held my stare. Emily moved to my side, hand brushing my arm like a warning. Mark, she said quickly, this is the kid's father. The word father hooked into my brain harder than his stare did. So this is the new boyfriend. His eyes traveled slowly from my shoes to my face. The way he stood told me this was not a friendly chat. I forced a small nod because my mouth would not work yet. Behind him, the boy had stopped at the gate, watching us closely. His sister clung to the fence with one hand and chewed her sleeve. They knew something was off, even if they did not know what. I felt like the villain in a movie who missed half the script. How long have you two been together? Mark kept his gaze locked on me, not on her. My tongue felt heavy, but I still heard myself answer. About 8 months, I guess now. Even as I spoke, the number already felt wrong in my head. Mark's eyebrows jumped up like I had just confessed to a crime. We split 5 months ago, he replied, still staring straight at you. The words hit harder than any shove because the math landed instantly. My brain ran the numbers twice and kept landing on the same problem. Counseling lasted until 4 months ago at least, he added, voice dry. So while we were trying to fix things, she was out meeting you. His mouth twitched like he was holding back a worse sentence. My grip on the bag handles tightened until the plastic dug into my fingers. That is not fair and you know it. Emily stepped between us fast, palm raised toward his chest. We were finished before that point. Her voice came out sharp and controlled in a way that sounded rehearsed. He laughed once without humor and shook his head slowly. You were finished every other week until the next apology. The kids heard each argument and every door slam when you swore it was over. You do not get to play the victim now because he looks confused. Both of them turned to me at the same time. I wanted to sink into the grass or vanish behind a tree. Instead, I stood there holding a backpack like a shield. I hated that word victim hanging over a conversation I barely understood. The boy ran back toward us and skidded to a stop near Mark. Are we going home with you or staying with Mom today? His eyes bounced between the two of them and then to me. My throat tightened because that question held way more history than I knew. With Mom tonight, buddy, we already talked about that earlier. He crouched to the kid's level and ruffled his hair in one rough motion. You are staying with her today, but I will see you soon. The boy nodded, then grabbed his sister's hand and ran back to the swings. Once they were far enough away, Mark straightened up and faced us again. You told me you needed space to work on yourself. Now I find out you were just trading me in while I babysat. He spat that last word out like it burned his mouth. My chest ached because none of this matched the story I heard. She had painted him as distant and mostly gone from their daily life. Now he stood here furious and still talking about pickup schedules. I realized every version of events so far depended on who I asked. Emily's voice dropped low and cold in a way I had not heard before. This is not the place for this conversation, her eyes cutting sideways toward the kids. You are not doing this performance in front of them again. She grabbed the bag from my hand and turned like she might leave. Mark stepped sideways, blocking her path the same way he blocked mine earlier. I am not performing, I am making sure this guy knows the truth. He jerked his chin toward me like I was an audience instead of a person. He deserves to know you were still in my bed while you flirted in his messages. My vision tunneled for a second and the sounds of the park blurred. I looked at Emily and waited for some kind of denial. Her mouth opened once then closed and her shoulders pulled up near her ears. Nothing came out and that silence was louder than any curse. So which version is it then? My throat felt raw and my hands would not stay still. Were you still sleeping with him while telling me he was gone? The words tasted like something rotten, but I needed them out. Emily's eyes flashed between us like she was trying to track two fires. I ended it before you and I were anything real. That line hung there between us like smoke that refused to clear. We were barely dating then and it was already dying. Mark snorted and crossed his arms over his chest in one tight motion. Keep rewriting history today, Em, then. Maybe one version will finally feel good to you. He looked at me again and lowered his voice almost to a whisper. Do not let her tell you this is all in my head. Check the dates and you will see where you actually fit. You deserve to know what you were really stepping into back then. He straightened up and walked toward the playground without waiting for an answer. I watched him go and tried to remember every timeline conversation with Emily. Little bits floated up, vague mentions of months, never any specific number. I realized I had accepted fuzzy answers because I liked the story. It felt good to be the stable guy after some nameless disaster. Now I wondered if that disaster stood 30 feet away kicking at the sand. Emily touched my arm and pulled my focus back to her face. He is twisting everything right now, and you know how bitter exes act. Please do not let him poison this before we even have a chance. I kept my eyes on the kids moving across the playground equipment. Mark pushed his daughter on a swing while the boy climbed the ladder. They both laughed, and for a second he looked completely different. Not the furious ex, just a tired parent trying to enjoy 5 minutes. You told me he barely shows up. My voice came out low while I kept my eyes on them. That does not look like a man who checks out of their lives. It looks like someone who ill thinks he belongs in the picture. She exhaled hard and pressed her fingertips to the bridge of her nose. He is good when other people watch him. He loves scenes like this where he can look like the hero. You did not see the part where he forgets to come pick them up. Maybe that was true and maybe it was not. All I knew was that my trust in her had already cracked. Now it felt like he was kicking at those cracks with heavy boots. Between them, I was just one more object they argued over in public. The boy waved at me from the climbing frame and shouted my name. Come push me next please, okay? He shouted it like we were already close friends on some regular weekend. My stomach lurched because to him this was simple while my mind spun. I lifted a hand and waved back so he would not see my hesitation. Sure, I called out and tried to arrange my mouth into a smile. Emily relaxed beside me for the first time since Mark appeared. She slipped her hand into mine and squeezed like we were still on the same team. I let her hold it, but I did not squeeze back. My head replayed Mark's words about overlapping beds and counseling sessions. I kept seeing a calendar in my mind with circles that did not line up. I realized this was the first time I actually doubted her entire version of us. That doubt did not explode all at once, it leaked slowly into everything. Into her texts, into her explanations, into the way she reached for me now. I knew leaving that day would make me the bad guy in 3 different stories. I also knew staying without answers would turn me into something worse. The school called me before they called her. I knew something was wrong the moment I heard my name. Mr. Walker, this is the office and we have Logan here. The woman on the line used that calm voice meant for emergencies. My stomach dropped because I had never been any kind of parent. You are listed as first contact now, we could not reach his mother. Her words landed in pieces and I grabbed the edge of the counter. First contact for what? I asked, my voice coming out too sharp. He is in the nurse's room with a stomach issue, he is upset. She paused just long enough to make it sound worse than that. I stared at my phone like it might correct her on its own. I am not his father, I said, because that felt important to clarify. Your name is here under guardian, is there someone else we can call? I heard papers shift and a keyboard tap in the background. The word guardian echoed in my head and would not sit still. I will come get him, I heard myself say, even while my brain resisted. My mouth moved faster than my thoughts, which happened a lot back then. The woman thanked me and gave the room number in a tired tone. I ended the call and just stood there with my keys in my hand. I realized I had already decided before asking a single follow-up question. On the drive over, I kept replaying the park argument with her ex. His voice about timelines, his reminder to check dates, his warning tone. It all blended with the school secretary calling me guardian like it was nothing. I felt like I had walked onto a stage halfway through someone else's play. Every mile closer to the building tightened something behind my ribs. The office lobby felt busy enough that no one stared when I walked in. A receptionist glanced up, then brightened like she recognized my name from somewhere. You must be here for Logan, she said, reaching for a clipboard. I nodded because speaking suddenly felt like too much effort. Sign here for pickup, then you can head to the nurse. I took the pen and looked down at the paper she pushed over. My own name sat in a column labeled parent or guardian in big letters. Next to it my number, my address, everything lined up in neat rows. Above that, in smaller print, Emily's name and another number I already knew. Someone had written my details by hand at the bottom and underlined them twice. When did this get added? I asked, the question coming out quieter than planned. She glanced at the sheet and shrugged like it did not matter much. Form came back last week with your info, looks like Mom filled it out. She tapped the top corner where Emily's signature rested. You are good to go, the nurse is right down that hall. I forced myself to sign even though my hand did not want to move. The pen dragged across the paper like it weighed more than it should. I followed the hall to the nurse's room, each step heavier than the last. Part of me wanted to turn around and walk straight out the door. The other part pictured a scared kid waiting for nobody. Logan sat on a small cot with his knees pulled to his chest. His face lit up when he saw me like I was exactly who he expected. You came, he blurted, wiping his nose with his sleeve. Mom's phone was busy and I thought nobody could get me. That last line hit deeper than the word guardian ever could. The nurse handed me a form and looked between us with a polite smile. He said his stomach hurt, but we think it was mostly nerves, she explained. Sometimes kids just need a familiar face to calm down again. Her eyes flicked to me like she assumed that face belonged to me. I signed the form because arguing with her in that moment felt cruel. On the way out, Logan clung to my wrist and walked close. Are you taking me home or to Mom's work? He asked. There was zero doubt in his voice that I would handle it. Home first, I answered, trying to sound sure, then we will see. He nodded like that was the plan he had in mind already. In the car, he talked about his day while my thoughts ran elsewhere. When he paused for breath, he studied me with this serious expression. Kids at recess think you are my dad, he said suddenly. They saw you at the park and someone asked if you were him. He watched my reaction like the answer mattered in a way I did not understand. What did you tell them? I asked, gripping the wheel a little tighter. I told them you are kind of my other grown-ups, he replied. He said it like that phrase made perfect sense in his world. I have dad and I have you and mom and Mia. He looked satisfied with the math while mine kept breaking. We reached the apartment before I found anything helpful to say. He unbuckled fast and sprinted up the stairs ahead of me. I followed slower, that pickup form still burned into my mind. He held the door open from inside like he had been doing it for years. You should call mom now so she does not freak out, he said. I dialed her number while he disappeared toward the living room. She answered on the third ring, sounding out of breath and distracted. Please tell me they called you and not Mark, came out before hello. They called me, I replied, because I am apparently first on the list. The silence that followed said everything she had not yet admitted. You picked him up though, she asked, voice dropping lower. Yes, I answered. I left work because the school thinks I am his guardian. I walked into the kitchen while we talked and scanned the refrigerator door. There, pinned under some magnet, hung the same type of school paperwork. My name jumped out again from the bottom of the page like a flare. You put me down without asking, I said, staring at the form. It was a practical thing, she replied, tone trying to stay calm. You are around a lot, you have a car, they needed another adult. I pulled the paper free, almost tearing the corner in the process. It does not say another adult, it lists me as parent or guardian. Her breathing grew louder through the line like she had started pacing. They use those labels for everyone because the system is old, she insisted. It does not mean you adopted them overnight, it just means they can call you. I looked at the signature at the bottom next to her printed name. You signed this, you knew exactly what words were printed here. The front door clicked and she walked in mid-call, phone still pressed to her ear. She froze when she saw the paperwork in my hand and ended the call. For a moment we stared at each other across the narrow space. Logan's cartoon played faintly from the other room like background noise. I held up the sheet between us like evidence in a trial. You turned me into the backup parent without asking, I said. She dropped her purse on the counter and rubbed the back of her neck. I turned you into someone the school can contact before his stomach explodes, she answered. Every time something happens they call me and sometimes I cannot get there. Her eyes shone with exhaustion, not just guilt, and that complicated everything. I am not saying I will never help, I replied, trying to slow my breathing. I am saying you do not get to decide I am their guardian by signature. She stepped closer, hands open like she was handling something fragile. You already help, she said softly. You make dinner here, you read bedtime stories. All I did was match reality to a form so they stopped calling a ghost. Hearing her use the word ghost for their actual father twisted my stomach. You do not get to erase him on paper just because you are mad. Her mouth tensed and she shook her head with a short, sharp motion. I put you third, not first. They just use whoever answers when things go wrong. You are acting like I forged your name for some scam. You changed my life on a legal document without a conversation, I answered. If something serious happened, they would look at this and hand me responsibility. I could hear my own voice climb and I hated it. In the next room, a laugh track rose and then cut off suddenly. Little feet pattered toward us, faster than I could lower my tone. Logan appeared in the doorway holding a handful of crayons. Mia trailed behind him, clutching a sheet of paper against her chest. He looked between us and froze when he caught the tension in the air. Are you guys fighting? He asked, hugging the crayons closer. The question sliced through everything sharper than any accusation we had thrown. We are talking loudly, Emily corrected, forcing a small smile toward them. It is grown-up stuff, nothing you did, we are okay. Mia sidestepped around her and came straight toward me instead. She held out the paper with both hands like an offering. I made this at school, she whispered, eyes staying on my face. 4 stick figures stood under a wobbly roof drawn with thick lines. Under each one she had written names in her careful, early handwriting. Mom, me, Logan, Dad. My name sat under the last figure, slightly crooked, letters pushed together. For a second everything around me went quiet, even my own anger. That one is you, she added, tapping the last figure with her finger. I told my teacher you pick us up sometimes and you make pancakes. Her voice carried pride like she had just solved some big puzzle. She said I can draw my whole family if I want to. The word family wrapped around my chest and squeezed until it hurt. I swallowed hard and forced a smile I did not feel ready for. It is really good, I managed, my throat tight. Can I keep it? Her face lit up and she nodded so fast her hair bounced. Yeah, you should put it on your fridge so you remember us. Logan laughed and elbowed her, then looked at me with open hope. In that moment, I could not keep arguing about forms and signatures. They stood there holding me in place with nothing but trust. I folded the drawing carefully and slid it into my jacket pocket. I need some air, I said quietly, more to myself than to her. I am going to step outside for a minute, I will be back. On the porch, I leaned against the railing and finally breathed. Inside, I could hear muted cartoon noise and the murmur of her voice. My phone buzzed with a message from a friend asking about weekend plans. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the keyboard. I realized I almost typed something about having the kids that day. That thought stopped me cold because it did not belong to me. These were not my children, yet my life had started bending around them. Schools called me, teachers would know my face, forms stamped me as guardian. A little girl now believed I was dad because her mother let me orbit. And I knew one hard decision was coming, whether I wanted it or not. The breakup started with a text that looked harmless. Hey, change of plans, can you watch them tonight, Mark Bilade? I stared at it on my screen while our dinner reservation reminder popped up. For a few seconds, I just watched both notifications sit there together. I called instead of answering because I already felt cornered. She picked up on the second ring, breath short, some noise behind her. Please say you saw my message, she rushed out, not even saying hello. We have that place booked tonight, I replied, trying to keep my voice level. She paused long enough that I knew she had forgotten completely. You can still come here, she said like she adjusted a puzzle piece. We will order in, you hang with them while I run out. That last part slipped out fast, like it was the real plan all along. Run out where, I asked, because I already knew I would not like it. Friend's birthday, I promised weeks ago, I cannot back out now. You promised me tonight too, I answered, gripping the edge of my desk. I could feel the decision forming underneath the actual words. You are good with them and they adore you, she pushed. It is just a few hours, you do most of this already. That line hit something raw in me that had been building for months. You do not get to call it a small favor when it rewrites my night. There was a sharp exhale on the other end, then a cooler tone. I am asking once, she said, I would not ask if I had options. You mean besides their actual father, I shot back before I could stop myself. Silence stretched there, long enough that I knew I struck exactly where it hurt. Mark is unreliable, you know that now, she replied, voice going hard. I thought you understood that when you picked our son up at school. That phrase our son slid in like a quiet test I had not agreed to. I understood that you keep handing me jobs we never discussed. Can you come or not, she asked, words clipped, patience gone. I can come, I said, but not to babysit while you party. If I said no and stayed home, the kids paid the price. If I said yes, I signed up for a role I already hated. I drove over anyway, which probably tells you everything about me. You ever walk into a place knowing you will disappoint everyone? That was the whole ride, just rehearsing two bad outcomes in my head. By the time I parked, my jaw hurt from clenching so hard. She opened the door wearing a dress I had never seen before. Makeup done, hair curled, shoes already on, purse by the entrée. NC. Logan rushed past her legs and wrapped his arms around my waist. You are here, he said, grinning up. Mom said you are staying all night. That one sentence made the whole hallway tilt. No, I started, then caught Emily's quick warning shake of the head. Jake is hanging out for a bit, she cut in, hand on his shoulder. We will see how late it goes, okay, buddy? Mia peeked from behind the couch, holding a stuffed dinosaur by the tail. She watched me with that cautious hope I had started recognizing. Can we make pancakes later, she asked, stepping closer. My throat tightened because I knew I was about to wreck something important. We will see, I told her, forcing a smile that felt wrong. That phrase had become our code for maybe no, maybe never. Emily pulled me toward the kitchen with a quick jerk of her head. The kids drifted back toward the living room, still chattering about movies. On the counter lay a written list with bedtimes and allergy notes. She pushed it toward me like a contract already signed. I left the neighbor's number 2 if anything gets weird, she said. She grabbed her purse and checked her reflection in a dark screen. I am not doing this, I said, and even I was surprised how firm it sounded. She froze with her hand on the strap, then turned, eyes narrowing. You are not doing what? She asked, like she needed to hear it clearly. I am not being your backup parent tonight because your ex flaked. Her eyebrows lifted in disbelief, then dropped into something sharper. So you will help when it is cute and convenient, she answered. Games at the park, pick up from school, bedtime stories when you feel like it. But the second it is actually hard, you are out. Do you hear yourself? I asked, trying to keep my voice down. You filled out paperwork with my name and never asked. You introduced me to them as someone who would stick around. And now you are throwing that in my face because I want one evening. She stepped closer, jaw clenched, hands shaking slightly at her sides. I am a single mom with 2 kids and a useless ex, she said. I thought I finally had someone who would step up when it counted. Real partners do not treat childcare like a favor they can decline. That real partner's line sliced right through any remaining guilt. You did not ask for a partner, I replied, feeling my voice rise. You drafted me into a job you wrote for me in your head. You built a little family around me without ever checking my answer. Outside our small bubble, I heard a cartoon theme start again. Logan laughed at something and Mia echoed him with a softer sound. It killed me that they were still happy in the next room. They had no idea the ground under them was cracking right then. From the doorway he called out without taking his eyes off the screen. Mom, are you leaving now? We picked a movie already. His casual excitement made the whole situation feel even uglier. She looked over my shoulder at him, then back at me like a challenge. If you walk tonight he will notice, she said in a low voice. He will ask why you changed your mind. And I will tell him you did not care enough to stay. There it was, the threat dressed up as an explanation. You know that is not true, I said, every word slow. But you are willing to say it if it keeps me here. Her eyes glossed over and she nodded like she hated that I saw it. I am willing to protect them from one more abandonment, yeah. Do not put your ex's damage on me, I replied, heat crawling up my neck. I did not promise them anything you did not push into my mouth. I never said I would be dad, I never got to decide pace. You made that choice alone, then handed me the bill. The volume in the other room lowered suddenly, then footsteps approached. Logan appeared first, frowning, Mia tucked behind him with the dinosaur. Are you mad at her? He asked, eyes bouncing between us. You both sound weird, like when Mark and Mom used to argue. Emily pasted on a smile so quick it almost impressed me. We are just sorting grown-up stuff, honey, nothing you guys did. Mia moved closer to my side and slipped her hand into mine. If you go, who eats pancakes with us tomorrow? She asked. That question nearly took my knees out. I crouched down so I was at their height, heart thumping hard. I like hanging out with you, I told them, which was completely true. But I did not know about a lot of things before I met you. They both studied my face with identical serious expressions. You are using your grown-up voice, Logan muttered, which almost made me laugh. Is he still coming back after Mom goes out? He asked her. He did not even look away from me when he said it. You guys go finish your movie, Emily urged, resting a hand on his shoulder. I will be there in a minute, okay? He hesitated, then turned slowly, guiding his sister back down the hallway. She kept looking over her shoulder at me until they reached the couch. Once they were out of view, I stood back up and finally decided. I cannot do this, I said, and my voice did not shake. I cannot be roped into parenting choices I never agreed on. And I cannot be threatened with what you will tell them if I leave. Her face hardened first, then crumpled around the edges. So that is it, she whispered, staring at the floor. You are walking away from all of us because I asked for help. You are proving Mark right about every single thing he warned you about. This is not about his warnings, I answered, though I knew they lingered. This is about trust, and you blew that months ago without admitting it. You hid their existence, you bent the story with their dad, you signed my name. Now you want me to just accept that and keep absorbing shocks. She swiped at her face with the back of her hand. I thought you were stronger than this, she muttered, more to herself than me. I thought you cared enough to push through one ugly phase. I never thought you would fold the first night it got inconvenient. That last word really stuck, probably because she was not entirely wrong. There was a version of me that might have stayed and swallowed it. Stayed for the kids, stayed for her, stayed to prove something to myself. But that version would have started resenting all three of them fast. I am leaving before I start hating you, I said, which finally broke something. She flinched like the word burned worse than any earlier argument. You cannot tell them that, she shot back, voice rising again. They will think it is their fault if you disappear now. I am not going to tell them anything ugly, I said firmly. But I am not staying either, not like this. I grabbed my jacket from the chair, my keys from the small dish near the door. My hands felt clumsy, like they were moving through deep water. As I turned, Logan stood in the hallway again, eyes wide and wet. Mia hovered just behind him with the dinosaur pressed to her chest. You are not staying, he said, not even trying to make it a question. The cartoon behind them kept playing, completely wrong for the moment. I have to go tonight, I managed, my throat closing around the words. It is not because of you two, you did absolutely nothing wrong. Mia stepped forward and pushed the dinosaur into my palm. Take him, she whispered, so you do not forget to come back. My fingers closed around the plastic without meaning to. I knew what that toy meant, even if she did not say it. I crouched again and forced myself to look them both in the eyes. I care about you a lot, I told them, which was the most honest thing. Will we see you next weekend? Logan asked, voice trembling. You said you would come to my game, remember? I hesitated for half a second too long and watched the hope fade. Maybe, I said finally, hating the shape of that word in my mouth. Behind them, Emily leaned against the wall with her arms folded tight. She looked exhausted, furious, and devastated all mixed together. I straightened up and held her gaze, dinosaur still in my hand. I am not the father you are angry at, I said quietly. I opened the door and stepped into the hallway before I lost my nerve. Their voices followed me, blurred together, then cut off with the latch. By the time I reached my car, my chest hurt like I had been running. I sat there with the engine off, forehead resting against the wheel. The dinosaur dug into my palm and I could not let go. I knew I had just become another adult who vanished from their story. I also knew staying would have turned me into someone bitter and cruel. So I drove home with the toy on the seat beside me like evidence. Now I am here typing this out for strangers on the internet. Months later, the dinosaur still sits on my shelf where I left it. Sometimes I pick it up and hear Mia asking if I will come back. Sometimes I hear Logan's voice at the gate, asking if I am staying. I walked away from a family I never chose, and I still do not know if that makes me selfish or just honest.